Hello and welcome to Tracy Mommy Reads. I am back again with another video. Today I'm going to be talking about the book Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera, I believe. Amy Tintera, Listen for the Lie. I'm really excited to get into this one today. This is another current-ish release within the last few months. And again, I want to try to push those books to the front to kind of get in on the conversation while there's still, a lot of excitement and chatter around those books. You may notice that on some of my books, you'll see this, I don't know why they do this to their covers, but BOTM stands for Book of the Month. And, I dabble with the Book of the Month every now and then if they have some good titles. I mean, the cool thing about it is that you can pause like your membership or opt out or drop out or whatever without being penalized or charged. Whenever there's some titles that you like, then you just jump back in and you get those titles at a discounted rate. So I think like I paid $16 for this one, and then I got a free book. So anyway, I just didn't know if you noticed that or if maybe anyone was curious about it. So back to the book. Okay, so let me give you the premise of this particular book, right? So there's this woman, I'm going to look here at the blurb. There's this woman named Lucy, right, in present day. She is a young woman who about 5 or 6 years ago, her best friend, Savannah, who everybody calls Savvy, she was murdered. And Lucy, all fingers pointed at her. And because she could not remember like anything from the night that Savannah was murdered, part of her wondered if maybe she did kill her, because everybody was saying it was you were the last one with her, you had her blood on your dress, and she could not remember anything. But because there wasn't enough evidence to actually convict her, because it's one thing to say somebody did something, but if you don't have any physical proof or evidence linking them to the crime, what can you do? You know what I'm saying? So she was in a very small town in Texas called Plumpton, I believe. And, it was just too much because it was whispers and stares and people were treating her different and, everything. So she left, after everything, the smoke had cleared and everything, and she moved to Los Angeles, right? So she had started her life over. She had a job, she had a boyfriend, and, she still missed her friend and didn't think that she had killed her, but because her brain would not allow her to really go there, and figure out what happened, she had to live with the fact that maybe she did, even though she had no reason to. So she was trying to move on with her life and everything. And then along comes this podcaster named Ben Owens. And the name of his podcast, ironically enough, I believe, it's a true crime podcast, and it's actually called Listen for the Lie. That's the name of his podcast. And that's what's on this cover here. It's like a auxiliary like plug or whatever, I guess probably to a microphone or to a tape recorder or whatever. But he comes out with this podcast and what he does is he does cold crimes, like he'll dig up stuff where murders or different things have never been solved, and he starts to dig into it. And this is his second season. With the first season, he did a cold case and solved the crime. He actually solved it. So he's gotten like really popular. So with his second season, he's revisiting Savannah's death, Savvy's death. And as a result, Lucy's name has come to the forefront. So when the book opens, poor Lucy, she's losing her job, because her boss has heard the podcast. People are looking at her funny. Her boyfriend's looking at her crazy because everybody has heard this podcast and they were not aware. Because she had left all that back in Texas, and what's the point of telling people, hey, I moved here because people accused me of murdering my best friend. But now it's all back out in the open. And, Ben did try to contact her to see if she wants to be a part of it, and she did not. So he just moved on with it. And as a result, just started to unravel her entire life. Okay. So let me just say this. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before or if you follow me on Instagram or you know me personally, but I consider myself to have a very dark sense of humor. And I was loving Lucy's character. Like, she was so inappropriate and so sarcastic and unserious, you know. And I think the unserious part was more of a defense mechanism. I mean, because obviously Savannah was her best friend and she was devastated. And as you go through the book and you learn about some other things that she went through, I mean, she didn't have like an easy time of it, right? But she was able to see the humor in it, you know, and kind of poke fun at herself and be very self-deprecating. And I just appreciated that and loved the dynamic between her and the other characters. So her grandmother, oh my God, I loved her grandmother, Miss Beverly. She was a hoot and a half. She calls Lucy and tells her, hey, I'm having, 80th birthday party and I want you to come home for it. And of course, Lucy's like, dude, this podcast has reopened everything, torn the whole scab off that nasty wound. If I come back to Texas, come back to Plumpton, everybody's, it's going to start all over again. And her grandmother's just not hearing it. She's like, I don't give a shit. I need you here. It's my birthday. I could be dead next year. Because her grandmother's very sarcastic and dark humor like her. Totally unserious. Maybe has a little bit of an alcohol problem. But she, she gives in and she ends up. I mean, because what else does she have to do? She got fired from her job. So she gives in and she goes back to Texas to attend her grandmother's, birthday party. And her parents, bless their hearts, as supportive as they are trying to be, deep down there's part of them that thinks that she did it too, but that's their daughter, so they can't just like shun her. So it's just this very precarious line that's being walked and conversations that's being had. And I think Lucy lives for it. I think she's with the shits because whatever, she buys into it, she'll make little comments like, well, I could be a murderer, so there's that. That's probably why people don't like you. She says stuff about it and she hits it head on and says what other people are thinking about herself, right? So what the bulk of the story is about is Ben comes back to Texas. He's in Texas as well, and we learn that Miss Beverly, her grandmother, had something to do with that. So because he solved, in his first season, that random, cold case file, he's hoping he can do the same with this one, which would benefit Lucy if she's not the murderer, right? Then it would finally give her some closure, finally get an answer as to who really killed Savvy. And so we are given a lot of backstories where we hear from a lot of different characters, and the way that it's done in the book was pretty clever. Like, I'll show you, I don't know if you can see this page. It's like a transcript, right? So every episode, we're being talked to someone in the town that knew either Lucy or Savvy, and or knew the circumstances surrounding that night, because there was a wedding that everybody had gone to in town, and that's the last place that she had been seen. So he talks to a lot of people she went to high school with, people, that knew them, because it's a very, very small town. Everybody knows everybody. And the stuff that he starts to uncover, it wasn't stuff that was uncovered first time around with the police investigation, let's just say that. But somebody mentioned in one of the interviews that he did that, like how you see in these movies or whatever, like real small towns, they don't get a lot of murder cases. They don't get a lot of murder cases. So whether or not they know the proper procedures and different things as to how to handle and actually solve a crime like that, more times often than not, they probably don't. So there's a lot of stuff that starts coming to light and resurfacing. We also learned that Lucy was married before. Like, she had come back after college. She had come back to Plumpton and had settled down and had a, handsome, rich fiance. And then they got married and all this stuff. And we learned what happened with that marriage, and getting more into the dynamic of her and Savannah's relationship. And the thing that I thought was interesting about this story, even though it's like, I guess you could say it's in the suspense, mystery, thriller genre, is that even even though we had this death, right? And it's obvious we're trying to solve it and see did Lucy really do it. There was this lightheartedness about it. Like, I mean, I hate to say this, but it was like a part of it, like you weren't like really mourning Savannah. A lot of the people, they were talking all this stuff. Oh, she was such a sweet girl. She didn't deserve that and this and that. And I'm not saying people weren't really mourning her because she was a bad person, because she actually wasn't. But it's just such a soap opera of just things that are happening in this small town that Savvy's death is really in the background. You kind of forget what you're there for, because there's so much gossip and so much drama, and this person sleeping with that person, and this person had an affair with that person, and this person did that, and it is just wild how this story is crafted for it to be like a thing where you're trying to solve a murder. And as more people start telling stories, and the more time that Lucy spends in Plumpton, and she goes back to some of the places where things took place, like her memory, like she's starting to get like snippets of that night, because she had totally replaced it with other memories and stuff that she said happened didn't even happen. But the real stuff is unfolding. The more time she spends there, the more time she, because she had initially told Ben no, she didn't want to have anything to do with his podcast. But when he told her, hey, this may help you out, she was like, okay, what do I have to lose? People already think I'm a murderer, right? So, the more time she spends with him, then, more things start to be uncovered, about what really happened. So once we learn, through Lucy's memories, what happened, I will tell you, first of all, before we got the full story, one thing that I thought was really good that the author did, because I love when authors do this kind of stuff, everybody in this book was guilty. I mean, of something. They may not have killed Savvy, but there were no angels in this book. Everybody, like I said, in that little town was doing some kind of dirt. These people were crazy. But when we find out what really happened that night and who was really responsible for Savvy's death, I mean, anybody in the town could have done it, right? So there's your plausibility, because it was a small town, a lot of people were at the wedding. There were different things that were happening, a lot of people crossing paths, but I don't know how I felt about the person that it ended up being. Not because I didn't want it to be them, but I just like a little breadcrumb, a little something where I could have gone back, and flipped through the book and been like, oh yeah, because I remember when they said XYZ, that's probably what that meant, but when you don't give a single solitary breadcrumb, or like give the reader that whole thing, like, how could I have missed that? I don't know how satisfying I feel that is. I don't know if it's just a convenience thing or it's meant for shock value, but I definitely didn't see it coming. So I guess there's something to be said about that. So yeah, we got a resolution. And again, it was almost like you forget that you're even waiting for that. It's not until towards the end, when it's building up and all of Lucy's memories start coming back to her rapid fire, that you're kind of like, oh yeah, like what happened again? Or who did that? Because you're like trying to figure out, well, did so and so sleep with so and so? What are his husbands? You've gotten wrapped up into the gossip and the stuff, the soap opera of Plumpton, Texas, that you're like forgetting you're supposed to be on the case and helping to solve this murder. And it wasn't even like really gruesome. It wasn't dark. I'm telling y'all, just the dialogue and Lucy's, voice in her head and all that stuff, that in itself gave this, I think, some levity, and it made it at times almost humorous. So yeah, if you like stories that, number one, are going to keep you engaged, that are fast paced, that puts everybody under the microscope and lets you see every piece of bacteria on everybody. so much so that you can't even begin to fathom who could have done what. Then I really think that you will listen for The Lie by Amy Tintera. But if you're looking for a very, serious, police procedural, kind of dark and, I'm trying to think of the right word, but something that's really serious, as far as suspense, thriller, things like that, then I don't know that this will fit the bill, because I was laughing out loud at some of this. And I don't know if it was meant to be funny. I think that it was. It's more like satire, I feel like, than anything extremely serious. And it could be because of the podcast element, because we know a good podcast can, turn things into something very unserious, depending on who the host is and the way that they attack the issue or the problem. So anyway, if you have read Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera, I want to know what you thought about it. Like, is it just me? Am I just off the deep end here for not taking this as serious as maybe it should have been? Or did you think it was kind of written more in a satirical form? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you like this video. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, go ahead and take the opportunity to do so now. And thank you to everyone who has already subscribed. I sincerely appreciate it. Thanks, and you guys have a great day. Bye.